Cop killed in shootout with gangbanger. A California police officer was shot dead and a second cop was injured when they responded to what they thought was a routine traffic accident on Monday. It all went down when a suspected gang member driving a stolen car was involved in a crash with another vehicle in Whittier, California. Unknown to the cops who showed up to investigate, the gangbanger had shot and killed a guy in East Los Angeles just a few hours earlier. Before the officers could pat the suspect down, he pulled a semi-automatic pistol out of his waistband and opened fire. The cops responded in kind, but that wasn't enough to prevent the death of 53-year-old officer Keith Boyer and injuries to another officer. Boyer was a 27-year veteran of the force and described as a much-loved member of the Whittier Police Department. The 26-year-old suspect was also injured in the shootout, but is expected to survive. According to the cops, the alleged gang member was out on parole and had been released from prison early under new laws that aim to reduce incarcerations in California. Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews. Keep watching for more stories about cops killed in the line of duty.
San Antonio cop is shot dead outside police headquarters. A Texas cop was killed while he was inside a squad car at police headquarters on Sunday. The incident is the latest in a string of cop killings that officials believe might be retaliatory measures taken against police for civilian deaths in which cops were reportedly involved. Detective Benjamin Marconi was writing a ticket inside his police vehicle outside San Antonio Police Headquarters when the suspect's vehicle reportedly pulled up behind him. Chief William McManus said the suspect walked up to the patrol car's driver's side window and fired once. The suspect then reportedly reached through the window and shot Detective Marconi a second time, before walking back to his vehicle and fleeing the scene. He drove through the parking lot and escaped from the west side of the building. During a news conference, Chief McManus compared the incident to the recent deaths of police officers in Dallas and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Both of those cases came after police were involved in the shootings of civilians that eventually sparked nationwide protests. Police are still investigating the motive behind the San Antonio shooting.
Kentucky cop killer suspect was Black Lives Matter activist. Joseph Thomas Johnson Shanks, the Missouri man suspected of shooting and killing Kentucky State Trooper Joseph Cameron Ponder before dying in a shootout with cops, was reportedly an active Black Lives Matter supporter who protested against violence. At 10:20 p.m. on September 13th, Johnson Shanks was pulled over along I-24 westbound for reasons as yet unknown. 2 women and 2 children were also in the car. Johnson Shanks' license was suspended, but police say Officer Ponder decided not to make an arrest. Instead, the trooper tried to help, suggesting the group stayed at a nearby hotel. But suddenly, Johnson Shanks fled and Ponder began a high-speed pursuit. He then suddenly stopped, causing Ponder to crash into him. Authorities say the suspect then leaned out of his window and fired at the trooper. Former Navy veteran and since this January, Kentucky State Trooper Joseph Cameron Ponder died at a local hospital at 11:41 p.m. He was 31 years old. The suspect then fled into the woods on foot, leaving the women and kids behind. At around 7 a.m., police spotted him in a wooded area and officers closed in. Johnson Shanks refused orders to drop his weapon, and after pointing the gun in the direction of an officer, he was fatally shot by police. A Facebook account under the name J Mile High is believed to have been used by Johnson Shanks. The page featured dozens of images of Johnson Shanks participating in Black Lives Matter protests, as well as him attending the funeral of slain teen Michael Brown. Johnson Shanks appeared to be a person committed to nonviolence, and in one post he seems to even defend police who shot a man brandishing a knife. What turned this activist into a suspected killer? And have police officers now really become assassination targets just because they wear a uniform?
Killer of sheriff's deputy fired 15 bullets in gas station ambush. Texas prosecutors say Shannon J. Miles, the man facing capital murder charges for the cold-blooded killing of Harris County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Goforth, shot the deputy 15 times from behind on Friday. After investigators matched Miles' truck to security footage of the shooting, they searched his garage and found a .40 caliber handgun with a 14-round magazine loaded with Aguila brand bullets. The gun can hold 15 rounds with 1 bullet in the gun's chamber. The same number and type of bullets used to kill Deputy Goforth. Ballistics tests later confirmed the gun was the one used to kill the deputy. Prosecutors have not indicated whether Miles owned the gun legally. Police say Miles' gun was found in a garage. Prosecutors have not indicated whether Miles owned the gun legally. But even with Shannon J. Miles in custody and being held without bail, prosecutors admit they still have no motive whatsoever for Miles' audacious act of violence. Over the weekend, Harris County Sheriff Ron Hickman said it appeared Miles targeted Goforth purely because he was in police uniform, and speculated that anti-police rhetoric used by protesters for the Black Lives Matter movement could have motivated Miles to kill Deputy Goforth. Black Lives Matter activist and organizer DeRay McKesson, in an interview with CNN, said the sheriff was politicizing Officer Goforth's killing. No evidence has been found to link Shannon J. Miles to the Black Lives Matter movement or its protests. Miles had a prior charge for assault with a deadly weapon from a 2012 fight in a homeless shelter where he lived. But the judge found him mentally incompetent to stand trial and sent him to a mental hospital for 6 months. A capital murder charge for the killing of Deputy Goforth means that if Shannon J. Miles is found guilty, he is eligible for the death penalty in Texas, which since 1982 has executed more people than the next 8 states combined. Miles' court-appointed attorney said their client will plead not guilty.
Say no to safe spaces on YouTube. Support TomoNews at patreon.com/TomoNews.
California cop gunned down in police station parking lot. A police officer in Downey, California was ambushed and killed as he sat in a police station parking lot late Wednesday night. Police have arrested 5 suspects. At around 11 p.m. on Wednesday, Officer Ricardo Galvez finished his shift for the evening. He was driving his own vehicle when he pulled into the station parking lot. Downey police say 2 gunmen fired into his car. The attackers then jumped into a Nissan Altima and fled the scene. One officer came running to help, while another nearby heard the gunshots and immediately gave chase. The attackers, now 3 in number, drove to the neighboring city of Montebello, ditched the car, and took off on foot. As of this morning, police now have 5 suspects in custody, 4 males and 1 female. Based on the nature of the attack, investigators believe the shooting was not random and Officer Galvez was targeted. He was 29.
South Carolina police officer shot and killed in the line of duty. A police officer was killed after he was gunned down by a suspect outside a suburban shopping mall in South Carolina yesterday. A suspicious man was reported in the parking lot of Richland Mall outside Columbia on Wednesday morning. He was later found to be armed with a .40 caliber handgun and a knife. The suspect was later identified as 34-year-old Jarvis Hall, who has previously been charged with refusing to stop on police command in August. He was also convicted earlier this month for unlawfully carrying a weapon. When 3 officers responded to the call, the suspect ran away from officers. The officers gave chase and struggled with the suspect outside before the suspect opened fire, hitting Officer Greg Aaliyah, who later died in hospital. Aaliyah was 32, married, and had a newborn son. He was with the department for 7 years.
Manhunt underway for Louisiana cop killer. An extensive manhunt is underway in northwest Louisiana for a suspect accused of shooting and killing an on-duty police officer. At about 9:14 p.m. on Wednesday, police received a call about a man threatening people at a Shreveport, Louisiana home. The man, later identified as Grover D. Cannon, already wanted in connection with the July shooting, was armed, though authorities have yet to specify the exact type of weapon. One of the officers responding to the calls was allegedly shot by Cannon and later succumbed to his injuries. Authorities have yet to provide exact details of the shooting. Local and state police deployed drones and helicopters around Shreveport, a city of some 200,000 people, in an effort to track down the suspect who fled the scene following the shooting. According to the Shreveport Times, Cannon, who has now been charged with first-degree murder for Wednesday night shooting, was already being sought in connection with the shooting of a 45-year-old man on July 15th.